Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending our seminar here today about the newcomer experience in Canada and the financial uh, tendencies that go along with that. My name is Joel Dory. I'm part of this excellent team that's going to be presenting for you guys today and talking about the newcomer experience in Canada. So, a little bit about myself. I have 10 years' experience as a financial planner. Pretty much straight out of school from finance, I came to IG Wealth Management, and I specialize in wealth accumulation, risk management, and drawing the financial roadmap from where you are today to where you want to be in retirement. So I was born in Canada. I'm not an immigrant to Canada, but very interesting. We on our panel today we have someone with personal experience as with being an immigrant into Canada. And even though it was 27 years ago, um, it was a big transition. And this is many of you may know Wally Belogan. He's one of the most decorated financial planners we have in this office and that I've ever met with the wealth and knowledge there. So afterwards, you're going to hear from our other partner, Trevor Dreher, who has 26 years experience as a financial planner in Canada. He's also a second generation of financial planners. His mom was a financial planner as well. So he's seen changing landscapes, changing financial structures, accounts, all sorts of stuff that he's going to be able to provide some insights on. So, what are the unique financial hurdles that immigrants face and or newcomers to Canada can face? One of the main ones is going to be income challenges. So, 43% of recent immigrants reported difficulty meeting their basic financial needs, whether that's clothing, shelter, providing for their family, rising inflation, everything like that. The second one is going to be the other barriers, which is navigating unfamiliar financial systems. Doesn't matter if you're a newcomer to Canada or if you've been here since birth, it's confusing. There's changing accounts, there's tax-free savings accounts, there's registered retirement savings plans, registered education savings plan. The list goes on and on, and they're changing and evolving. And we understand that it can be difficult for anybody to understand this. And that's kind of where we come in and try and make it a seamless process for you. The third one that newcomers to Canada face quite frequently is family responsibilities. We talked about high childcare costs, combining that with reduced earning potential when you first get to Canada, constrain a lot of families. A lot of families also send remittances home. And then we also see that there's a lot of families who don't have the proper risk management strategies in place, and we're going to touch on that as well. So without further ado, I'd like to transition over to Wally Belogan for this next little bit here.
Hi, I'm Wally Balogun, and I moved to Canada a little over 3 decades, about 3 decades ago. Like with most immigrants, I was pretty excited. I'd never seen a day of snow in my life. Had done lots of traveling, but somehow I found myself leaving my country and arriving on other shores during the summer. So, first winter was in Canada. Pretty excited. Thought it was a lot of fun and was going to be a lot of fun. And at some point, I was like, oh, maybe this is a little bit too much for me. In addition to that, I found myself having to walk in minus 40 degrees. Not fun. And so I had to adjust very, 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 very quickly. Adapting to the cold involved wearing multiple layers, as you all know. Getting a bunch of winter accessories, thermal gloves, insulated boots, face protection. The list goes on and on. And right after I got through my whining and complaining phase, I thought maybe I could throw in some outdoor activities to um, make make this fun. And one of the things I looked at or took to was hunting. And some still think it's crazy, but it was one of the things that I had to do to adapt. But why am I talking about adapting? Just like with adapting to the cold, I also had to learn to adapt to the financial system and structure that we have in Canada. I came to Canada with a traditional mindset. and my thinking needed to change. One of the things that I came with or had to work on was an overall distrust of the banking system. This was driven largely by my background. I grew up in a cash-based society, and financial thinking, for the most part, was short-term. In Canada, it's important that you build credit history. I had to learn to invest for future security, and my thinking had to change to long-term financial planning. Now, back at home growing up, mom and dad would have a checking and a savings account. That was just about it. And lots of investment property. They would own businesses every now and then. Now, but they never really had to, and that worked very well for them. But I found out that in Canada, you have to put labels on your money. Do you need it now? Would you be needing it soon? Or would it be much later? I call this the financial buckets. Why is this important? The way you treat money that you need now, you know, gas up your vehicle, have lunch, shouldn't be the way you treat money that you think you would need in 15 years. That is key. And most immigrants miss this simply because of, for the most part, what we're exposed to back at home. This thinking has to change. The way you invest money you would need in a few months shouldn't be the way you invest money that you would need for retirement. And in addition to that, maybe one of the things you would start uh, thinking about is, what labels or what vehicles do I use? Should it be the RRSP? Should it be the RESP? And the list goes on and on, just like Joel mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. Now, what's different? What are these three buckets? What do they look like? Now, 0 to 1 years, short-term goals, this address your immediate needs and it builds financial stability. This money also takes care of your first priorities. The money you need soon, 1 to 5 years. Could it be you're looking at buying a home soon? The way you put that away um, is definitely different. For the younger folks, I mean, there's the first time home savings account that's relatively new. Should you be using your RSPs as a strategy, taking advantage of the first time home buyers plan? The list goes on and on. And then later, I already talked about retirement. This money, you can afford to leave it much longer. What this could mean is that, yeah, you can weather the ups and downs with the market. Now, it becomes very clear that the way you treat money that you need for retirement shouldn't be the way you treat money that you need for lunch because it could go down overnight. And that would be a lot of intermittent fasting before it gets back to where it needs to be. So, with that being said, I'm going to bring in Trevor, who is going to talk about why it's important to have financial goals. Trevor has been in this business for almost 30 years now. And most importantly, and this is what I find quite intriguing, which Joel also mentioned, is that he's a second generation of financial planner. He's probably seen it all. So over to you, Trevor.
Not sure I would say I've seen it all, but let's just say I've seen a lot over that period of time. This is just an interesting slide from the perspective of goals, and we just put financial goals. The main reason that people set goals is so that they actually have a better chance of achieving them. When you look at what goals do, I have a running goal right now. So what did I do? I created a running goal that was important to me, Alzheimer's run coming up this year. I then created a running plan in order to make sure that that was going to happen. And then, unfortunately, I have a tracking mechanism to see how I'm progressing towards that goal. Financial goals aren't a lot different. And what we know is if you have a direction and purpose, what do you want to do? Do you want to put your kids through university? Are you saving for a home, a rental property? Are you saving for a trip? That gives you some direction and purpose. And then it automatically prioritizes, in this case, where your spending should go. what has to go into, as Wally so eloquently said, which buckets have to get money. And that creates long-term financial success. I can say after all these years of being in the financial field, it takes a level of patience. It's too bad that you can't start a running program and tomorrow be competing in the Olympics. It sounds great. We'd all like that. And we're aware of those limitations, but sometimes in the financial field, we think it can happen quicker than it can. Wally and Joel both alluded to some, what I'm going to call this next part, essential Canadian ideas. We have a couple of really key places to put your buckets in, not just about knowing what your goals are, but then using the right vehicle. There is a great plan for kids' education. We're using it for my son right now, who's going into his fourth year university. We haven't had to dip into our own pocket and take dollars out because we started this plan when he was born. That's an education savings plan. Very, very cool. RSPs. Well, I'm using that right now, and Wally's going to answer, I think, one of the best questions on them later, because it's saving me income tax. And yes, later, and when I go to take it out in retirement, I'm going to have to pay some of it back, but it's a different exchange rate. And then the other piece, and in Canada, this is an unusual thing in all of my tenure, tax-free. Tax-free anything in Canada is extremely rare, and it is definitely a vehicle that Canadians have typically underutilized or maybe not utilized as effectively, again, depending on which bucket they want to push into. So those are things that get people very excited. How to save for my kids' education? What about my own retirement? Oh, I heard about this tax-free thing. Equally important, though, in Canada is insurance. And insurance types are a little bit different. Yes, we have healthcare that's paid for. So everyone goes, check, I guess it's covered, depending on where you come from. But then we have health insurance, which covers things like dental and prescription drugs. Oh, that's not necessarily covered as you come into Canada. And some employers will have that. It's important to know what that would entail. And then a very common thing for Canadians is life insurance. And life insurance is simply a lump sum of dollars that's going to come in if one of you passes away prematurely. It is a critical part of financial planning. And then even Canadians, I think, miss this an awful lot is what about living benefits? One of the great things about the age that we live in, not just in this country, but around the entire globe, is how much better medical care has got. So getting a disease now does not necessarily finish you off. Great. But then what if there's years that I can't go back to work? Or what if there's real financial consequences because I couldn't work for a period of time or I need additional health care? And so critical illness and disability are an important type of that. So essential savings vehicle, essential insurance types. And one of the most important things we say to Canadians who are starting out. So as a new Canadian, this is equally important. You need to make sure that your income is protected. This does all of these things for you. When you think about what's the most important part of your financial plan, it's actually your ability to earn money. It's your ability to earn money into the future. At some point, you get to retirement, you're like, great, now all this money that I earned and put away can kind of float back and come back to me today. But at the early stages, it's your ability to earn money. And money gives you stability. It allows you to send dollars back home or to other family members. Essential needs, makes sure that, and then can also provide that extra assurance if something does happen to you and it doesn't go as well. I know where I'm not an immigrant. I married my lovely wife who's been in Canada for 35 years now from Malaysia. And these structures do not exist in Malaysia. And it's very interesting when we would go back there. We were just back in 2024. Oh, it's different. And there's holes in healthcare and long-term care things that we just don't think about here. And precautions I think that many people have taken here that they never thought about into the future there. So as someone who's new to Canada, there's some basic things that you want to remember. And as well, you want to adjust as you go. What would we like to encourage you to do today? I think that's one of the biggest pieces. You can hear a great webinar, you can get a good piece of coaching, and are we doing anything with it? Most important thing, what are the things that you want? You came to Canada for a reason. What are the main drivers and motivations? That's great. Write them out. What's the timeline to actually achieve that? What are the actually a period of time that you say, hey, with a little bit of patience and some regular achievement, I can actually get this done. What does it look like? You are allowed to adjust that timeline, but it really should have a goal associated with it. And then the bottom one, we did talk about this part of the meeting. Did we reverse it? I think the biggest thing is find professionals who can help and coach you through this process. There's a myriad of rules, regulations, the best use of that really can change and adjust, not just based on how laws change, which, as Joel alluded to at the beginning, I've seen change and adjust over the years, but also your situation. What's unique about you, what you're trying to achieve, and how you're trying to achieve it that can really make some of the basic pieces of financial planning really maybe not so basic, and having professionals to just sort of match it up. A great example with that is a conversation I had just yesterday with a client. The client was concerned about financial markets, and we got talking about more along the lines of tax planning and saying, well, how do we take dollars effectively out of your corporation because you're ready to retire and politely there's too much money there? I was like, oh, yeah, I think I was asking the wrong questions. So coaches for sure can help you do that. Now, this is the opportunity for you to ask some questions. We have two of our most common, and for that, I'm going to turn you back over to Wally to actually give you the answers to two of the most common questions that he's received over the years from people new to Canada.
Question I get all the time is RSPs. It's going to be taxed when I take it out. And my answer is yes. And the follow-up question is, why would I do that? And I ask a question at that point. If I walked up to you and said I would be giving you $100, but you have to give me 30 back, would that still be a good deal? And they go, yeah, I guess so. And I'm like, that's how RSPs work. It's that simple. We can go into some more detail if you ever want to, but that's a high-level overview of how RSPs work. The other question I get is real estate. I can make lots of money in real estate and just keep all my investments in real estate. And my response to that is keep in mind that it's very easy to turn cash into bricks, but it's not as easy to turn bricks back into cash. So that's something for you to keep in mind when you're considering real estate.
Awesome. And that wraps us up today. In part of our 101 series on our Wealth for Generations, we truly believe the knowledge has to transfer over as well. And that is a critical part of what we're trying to do in these series. So we appreciate your time and we wish you an awesome day. We'll look forward to catching you up on our next WEX webinar.